This is Counsel Club. I'm Dr. Ina, and we are talking about disgust. So what is disgust? Disgust is an emotion that can come up whenever we encounter something that we find offensive, repulsive, or just gross. The emotion of disgust is a complex psychological response that has evolutionary roots. It originally evolved as a mechanism to protect us, right, from disease and contamination. It's often, though, a reaction to things that we perceive as unclean, unhealthy, or even morally unacceptable. So disgust can be triggered by different things. So things like physical sensations, like a bad smell, a bad taste, textures, rotten food, things of that nature. Disgust can also be triggered by moral violations, so actions or things that we see that go against our moral values, like cruelty, dishonesty, injustice. Contaminations, so situations or objects that we feel could make us dirty or make us diseased, like dirt or germs or animals, can also trigger this feeling of disgust. Like I always say, no emotion is bad. They all serve a purpose. So disgust can serve as a protective mechanism. It helps us to avoid things that might harm us physically or even socially. It can cause physical reactions like nausea or a need to distance ourselves or to remove the source of the disgust. So if you're feeling disgusted, what might this emotion be trying to tell you? So feeling disgusted by another person is usually going to involve a strong emotional response to something about that person that you just find deeply objectionable or repulsive. This can come from a lot of different things. So physical disgust, it might be triggered by something about the person's hygiene, maybe their appearance, that you just find unclean, unhealthy. Moral disgust towards another person. This can happen when somebody is engaging in behaviors that you just think are morally wrong or deeply unethical. So this might be acts of cruelty, dishonesty, or violations of just social norms. Think about something that you've either viewed on television or social media that just made you really uneasy or made you feel disgusted with what you were seeing. I know for me, for example, when I saw George Floyd murdered on television, I felt disgusted. And I actually felt that feeling of disgust every time I saw that officer after that. When I was watching the trial, it was a trigger for me. So disgust can also be tied to social and cultural factors. Cultural norms play a really significant role in shaping what we find disgusting. So disgust towards another person can be influenced by standards or even learned prejudices. Disgust can also come up if you have a strong emotional reactions to someone's personality, especially if their personality conflicts with your own values or your own expectations. Personal experiences also play a role. Past experiences with similar behaviors or similar people can influence your feeling of disgust. And then negative experiences moving forward can sort of heighten your sensitivity to certain triggers. When your disgust is directed at another person, it can often serve as a means to create psychological and social distance, signaling just this strong desire to avoid the person or behavior in question. This experience can teach us a lot about ourselves. So disgust towards another person can show us our own personal boundaries, what we find intolerable or unacceptable. It shows us what we're sensitive to, whether it's taste, smell, signs, behaviors, or a person. Overall, by paying attention to what disgusts us, we can gain insight into our instincts, our values, cultural influences, and emotional responses, helping us understand ourselves more deeply. So I was working with a client recently who was talking to me about just feeling absolutely disgusted by this person in their lives. They were disgusted to the point that they did not want to hear this person breathe. Every time they came around, they started to have a physical reaction. They felt nauseous. Now, this person had actually, in the past, done quite a few things to wrong my client. They had a reason to feel disgusted, but they were really uncomfortable with that feeling, so we were talking in session about this feeling of disgust. So we started to explore it and kind of uncover it, and what we figured out was that the disgust was sort of serving this protective function for this person. This person was trying to get back into their lives, kind of sweet talking them, saying all the right things, doing all the right things, but physically my client still felt disgusted. So, like I said earlier, disgust is an evolutionary emotion. Think about things that are poisonous, like drain cleaner or sink cleaner that we keep a safety cap on to keep away from children. If a child drinks it, it's going to taste disgusting. They're going to be disgusted. And that's going to stop them from continuing to engage in that behavior. If they didn't have that disgust reaction, if it tasted like strawberries, they would continue to drink the poison. So being disgusted, what we discovered in session, was actually her body's way of telling her, you need to protect yourself and tread carefully in this situation.